Yeah, so how do we know which cloud is the nearest one?
Passes across in front of the bird.
Okay.
What is supposed to be the bird?
So cloud in front of bird. How do you know it's a bird?
Looks like a bird.
How does it look like a bird? It's a V. Okay, fair enough. Bird equals V. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's a V. How else do we know that the bottom cloud is the nearest one? Alexa?
The biggest.
It's the biggest.
So that creates like an illusion of distance.
All right, so cloud is biggest. What else?
Airborne.
It's the fastest.
It's the fastest. What else?
Brightest.
Brightest. Yeah. That's a really good one. Whoever said that first is a and let's see. What else is going on here? How do we know it's a cloud, for instance? Right?
The blue background makes you think of sky.
All right, so blue, e.g. color. What else?
It's white.
What's white? Sorry?
The cloud's white.
Clouds are white.
What we think is a cloud is white.
All right, clouds are white. Tony, what were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say it's white, and also because it's an oval.
Okay,
They're a
cool.
brownish color.
So clouds are oval. All right, anything else? There's
Yeah,
a couple more things here.
because you reference like birds flying in the sky, like you would think that's the ocean. You just reference because birds, you're running kind of fly in the
Okay,
sky.
cool. But how do you know it's in the sky? I mean, it's a blue background, but what else is going on here? Like, is the bird just standing still?
And the feet going up and down.
Yeah, bird's sort of floating. So, bird goes up and down. Close enough. Anything else going on in here?
The opacity of the cloud decreases
Okay.
as you get, further away.
Yeah.
Gradually further away.
So opacity decreases
Seems like a vapor.
as further away. Okay, and there are a couple other things we didn't talk about, like the fact that the clouds are moving, that they're going from right to left, and then what happens when a cloud is all the way off the screen?
It no longer exists.
Okay, yeah, no, that's true. I mean, you could say it doesn't even really exist to begin with. It doesn't even really go off the screen. It's just those lights stop showing. Yeah, Nara?
It's like off the screen, but it restarts. So once it reaches a certain point of like that x-axis or whatever you use pencils, it restarts the whole thing.
Yeah, and it goes back to the beginning. Yeah, so here we've identified a bunch of things that tell you that this is a bird flying through the sky. So this isn't really even the bare minimum you would need to think that this is a bird flying across the sky. Like, the clouds probably don't need to be moving and you would still get it. Or maybe the background color doesn't even need to be blue. As long as the clouds are moving, you'd still be able to figure it out. Or the V, I don't know, maybe it could be a different shape. Maybe it could be a carrot upside down. Not carrot like bunny, but yeah, so there are lots of different things that could be changing on here. In fact, you might not even need the clouds at all. As long as it was just a V in the middle of a blue page standing perfectly still, you could think like, oh, okay, that's a bird. But there's one thing that tells you even more that it's a bird. And that's the fact that I think when I was introducing this, I said, this is a bird, or that this is something flying. Like with the button, it says push on it. So one of the most important things is that there's something, like if you look up here at the title, it says flying. There's something on here telling you, hey, this is flying. And so even without all of this visual stuff, if it just said a bird flying through the sky, you would think, oh, okay, a bird flying through the sky. You'd already get that perception. I'd like to do one more thing. Before we do, are there any more, or are there any thoughts on this?
Well, there was one other thing. I think, again, we have artistic convention to thank for some of this because people have been representing sky, birds, clouds, things like that, not just in video games, but in other media for a long time. Basically, human history.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And that's something that you can make use of in every program that you ever do. I mean, this bird is a V. Like, if I just draw 3 V's right here, then looking at that, I already think, oh, hey, a flock of birds. And I just drew 3 little angles on a page. It takes very, very little. Okay, so the last thing I want to do for now, with all these weird visual things, is another kind of bird. All right, so what I would like you to do now is, with the same group, answer these questions. So which of these looks most like a duck? And of these, what of the duck-looking ones, what do they have in common? So which looks most like a duck? And what do the duck-looking ones have in common? So I'm going to give you 3 minutes to think about that. Go ahead and start.
That's the focus one.
Well,
This is a very, very could be like an artistic way of coming, but I can't see
say what?
But no, now that you said it though, now that's the only thing I can see, the big foot. I don't see what it's really fun. That's better, like a TV.
All right, start wrapping it up.
Which one? All of them.
See,
That,
now I think
that
that
color looks fun.
Say what?
That color looks fun.
Oh, no, I was just plain old yellow. Sorry. All right. So were there any unanimous groups where everyone agreed on the same thing? Oh yeah, cool. You guys were the first one. There wasn't one in the last class. So now I'd like you to take another 3 minutes to discuss what is the minimum necessary for something to look like a duck. So out of all these things, out of the duck-looking ones, what is the minimum necessary for something to look like a duck? Mahan? I want you to talk about it with your group. But thank you. And that's actually a really good thing to bring up. So a beak, I would agree, but let's say you don't know what a beak is. Like, how would you, just thinking in terms of shapes or like super primitive stuff, how would you say what is the bare minimum necessary for something to look like a duck? So talk about it with your group. I'm going to give you 2 minutes for this one.
I don't know what you guys ask is about
That doesn't have to be
For me,
Well, but the least amount would be the two most because the rest of them kind of have this part that whereas side is simple one and that adult would be just the bottom.
So that's how you make illusions. Like how it's clean, like this one is done. That changed the whole section on it. Like,
well, this would
it's just not how to code too. You start thinking about
Yeah, like sometimes whatever it is.
All right, start wrapping it up. Okay, so what's the minimum necessary for something to look like a duck? What did you guys come up with?
We are about like shape, you know.
Okay, can you
So,
be
like
more
a-
specific?
Like a visual representation. Obviously, the first one that pops out on the screen to us was the bottom left one.
Okay.
So it's got, I mean, it's like a visual representation of what it is.
Okay, can you tell me how?
In terms of the duck, it has features like a head and a beak.
Okay, so what's the head?
Sort of.
So head equals circle, and the beak is what?
It's a couple of lines.
Yeah, so it's two parallel lines close together. All right, that's a great thing. What about you guys in the next group back? I'm going to go around to everyone.
So, we was thinking, you said like a circle, and like if you can just like see a circle, and like an opening for a mouth.
Okay, so kind of the same thing. Or when you say circle, do you mean this or
What I saw was like the middle one and the last one, but what you said was
Yeah, the middle center, the top center, because you have an eye, you have a triangle.
and I think
Okay.
you kind of visualize that circle.
The triangle's big too, this is an open beak, right?
so
Big closure.
I is a circle and then a triangle.
Could also be like more details for the head part, but also it could also represent like a wing or the like a from further away. The perspective it transcends like multiple perspectives.
I like
I
transcend.
see that now.
So it looks kind of like a wing. Kind of looks like Flappy Bird, actually, now that I'm looking at it.
Like
Okay, what about you guys in the back?
We kind of agree, like the bottom left one was able just to add something, I guess that's not necessarily on there, is the two lines with an angle that's less than 90 degrees.
Oh, okay, so it's an acute angle. Let's see, how about that is Matt, he's not agree. What about you guys?
I was going to say, we thought the bottom left one, and I think one of the things that has been pointed out is the orientation matters, right? Like we have to think about where this is positioned. If you take those vertical lines and point them upwards,
I'm like
that's
a
not going to
rabbit.
look like a duck.
Yeah. Okay, so the parallel lines close together, going horizontal. How about you guys?
Yeah.
Anything different?
The second one for me.
Yeah.
That dot looks like a head. That less than sign means like a wing,
Mm-hmm.
or and then the bottom part is just like it's floating in the water or something.
Cool. Awesome.
I see
Oh, I
that.
didn't even see it from that angle at all.
Awesome.
Oh, wow, I was like thinking.
And then, yeah, Darwin?
I'd say two things. I'd say one, it's yellow.
Mm-hmm.
It was right to be a different perception. And by you just saying which one's the duck makes us think that. If you didn't say that, I wouldn't know what these things are.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, thank you. Pat, since you're standing, you can go ahead and like pop a squat somewhere if you want. Well, that was easy. Oh, well, I mean, I didn't mean literally squat.
This is
I
all
meant
right.
like, all right. Whatever floats your boat. Okay, so the reason we did this is not just because I couldn't think of anything to do. This is actually an experiment in user stories. So for your project, we asked you to write user stories, and we didn't talk about what user stories are. We just sort of left that up to you guys to figure it out. So user stories are really sort of whatever you make of them. But in the whole Agile methodology, you guys have heard of Agile or Agile, however you say it. Big buzzword. No one really knows what it means. They just like to say, oh yeah, we're Agile. So in Agile methodology, user stories describe every sequence of events that a user might encounter while using your app. So every possible story, every possible sequence of events a user could encounter while using your app. It's basically every timeline. Like if it was a choose your own adventure book, it would be like every different adventure they might have while using your app. And the way it usually works when you're designing an app is you brainstorm a bunch of user stories and you write them all out, and then you remove the ones you think are least essential. And then when you've gotten to that point, you could sort of create additional user stories. So you define what is the most important stuff for someone to experience for this app to be considered complete. What are the bare minimum stories I need a user to be able to have, encounter, in order for them to think my app is what I want it to be? And so this correlates really strongly to test-driven development, which I know Melissa knows some stuff about. And we're not going to talk about this week, but we'll be talking about it next week, how user stories translate into test-driven development. But what you effectively did here was you created the user stories for a duck. You defined what is the bare minimum necessary for someone to encounter in order to think, I have experienced a duck. I know it's kind of a weird way of phrasing it, experiencing a duck, but that's really what it is. What's the bare minimum necessary for someone to experience for them to think, I have experienced a duck? And the most important one on here, I would say, is that I told you it's a duck. So think about like text-based adventure games where there are no graphics on them whatsoever. If it says like you're fighting a duck, it doesn't show you a picture of a duck, but you just take it for granted. Oh, okay, I'm fighting a duck now. Great. Even though there's like no visual representation of it at all. This gives you a tremendous amount of power as a programmer and as a developer because you don't need to make an actual duck show up in your app. You don't need to actually make a card flip over. You can just say the card is flipped over, or you can just show a piece of text or hide a piece of text, and it creates this illusion that you want. You've defined a story that I want my users to be able to see a card flipped over, and then you've written the code, the bare minimum code necessary to make that happen. So that's sort of the power of a user story, is defining all of this stuff first, defining what you want a user to experience, and then after that, you go in and define the code to make it happen. We're going to talk about that later, but let's break now for 10 minutes, and then we'll bring it back at 35.